Good morning or good afternoon for some of you guys, and welcome to the first of our Invertek Drives live webinars. This is our first time working with this equipment and doing this kind of live broadcast to you all. So please bear with us a little bit if it's not quite as professional or polished. I'm sure with a little bit of practice, we'll get better. Thank you very much for those of you who have joined us live, and for those who are watching the replay, we'll edit out all of the mistakes so everything will look perfect for you guys. Don't worry. So with this Livestorm software that we're using here, the idea is that we produce this as a broadcast, and there's a facility in the side of the screen, on the right-hand side of the screen for you guys, where you can open up and ask questions during the broadcast. So any questions that come in, please try and keep them relevant to the subject that we're talking about. And then we've got guys sitting in the background who are there to answer questions as we go along. And then for the more important questions that we want to answer to all of you guys, then we'll go through those at the end. So please feel free to type the questions in and ask them as we're progressing through the presentation. And then we'll try and cover as many as we can, either during the presentation or towards the end of it. So just to explain a little bit about what the aim of this webinar is for you guys, we've got some of our sales partners from around the world online. You will have recently had a marketing bulletin from us talking about some of the new products and new developments that we've produced over the last few months. And this broadcast or this webinar is just to explain a little bit more about some of those new products and to give you a little bit more insight, a little bit more detail about what we've been working on and the new products. So the first product we're going to talk about today is our IP66 outdoor drive. So this is what we internally refer to as our second generation IP66 product. So it's a replacement for the previous generation IP66 products, E3, P2, and Eco, that we've had available for a few years now. So the previous generation products were based around sharing the same hardware and the same internals as our IP20 drives. This new second generation product is based around a dedicated IP66 design. So one of the things that we've done is we've maintained the same heatsink and the same mounting dimensions from the previous generation product. So in terms of actually swapping from a previous product to the new one, you've got direct compatibility on the mountings. You can see the keyhole mounting slots there. Everything then forward of the heatsink is all new. So this whole housing is a completely new design. And what we've done is we've kept one housing design that's then shared across all of our product ranges. So the same external housing, the same heatsinks are used for E3, P2, Eco, common design across the range. One of the biggest areas that we wanted to improve on the new drive was the access to being able to connect the cables, the power cable, motor cable, and control cables into the drive. So if I just move across to the close-up, so you can see there inside the terminal chamber, you can see some of the improvements we've made. So compared to the previous generation drive, we've moved the terminals around a little bit on the power side, so they're more in line with the glands. So when you're connecting a cable into the drive, it's much simpler and much more straightforward to get the cables directly into the drive. There's also substantially more space inside the terminal chamber to accommodate the cables and to fit everything inside. And the control terminals up here, you can see we've improved the access on there also. You'll also notice on the new design, we've changed, so we've now got two RJ45 connections. So for those who aren't as familiar with our products, these connection points here, this is where if you were connecting to a Modbus RTU network or to a CAN open network, this is where you would connect the cables, or also for external keypad, PC connection kit, OptiStick. So now we've added two inside there. What that means is if you're connecting on a network with multiple drives, multiple nodes connected together, you don't need to try to work out how to get splitters and network joining equipment inside here. You can just connect the two ports directly onto the drive. So in terms of the functionality of the drive, everything inside, the parameter sets, the software, the operation is exactly the same as the IP20 drive. So if you've got an E3 IP20 or E3 IP66, you can copy parameter sets, you can copy the functionality directly between the two drives. They're completely compatible as far as the parameter set is concerned. Now, the same as we had with previous generation products, if we look specifically at the E3 drive, you've got the two options. So this is what we refer to internally as a switch drive. You've got the control switch that's built in here, and you've got the potentiometer. Or you can order the drive as a non-switch unit with all of these three items removed. So exactly the same options as we offered before. And the biggest change that we've made on this second generation IP66 is this drive is suitable for outdoor use. So on our previous generation drives, they were IP66 protected against dust and moisture, even high pressure washdown, but not suitable for outdoor mounting. This second generation product uses a different plastic material for the housing. So this is polycarbonate as opposed to ABS, with special additives in that are designed to resist the UV effects from the sun and provide weather protection for the drive. So we'll explain a little bit more about the outdoor mounting a little bit later on, but that's one quite significant change that we've made on this second generation product. In addition then, on the E3 version of the drive, and again I'll just move this over to the close-up camera so you can see here. On the E3 version, you can see there we've maintained the same LED display and the same 5-button keypad that we had before. There are two additional new versions of this drive that are available. And you'll notice on this drive here, there's an additional 2 ports. That's because this version of the drive is now optionally available with built-in Ethernet IP or built-in Modbus TCP. So this is a factory-fitted option. It can't be fitted after the drive's purchased. You need to order the drive with the correct field bus option here. So for Ethernet IP, it's just the standard drive part number with -EIP on the end. And for Modbus TCP, it's the drive part number, but with MTP added to the end of it. So those 2 ports there, it's a dual port onboard Ethernet that gives you access to control of the drive, and additionally so that you can read and write parameters. So all the functionality is available there within the drive. Ethernet IP version is ODVEA approved, so it's ready for direct connection. And of course, Modbus TCP is a much simpler network. And again, everything is tested. So those 2 versions, they're available to order now. Production will start around August 2020. So that's the E3 version of the drive. Put that to one side here. So in addition to the E3, we've also got the IP66 outdoor P2 drive. So you'll notice immediately the biggest difference between the E3 and the P2. On the P2 drive, we've got this high resolution TFT display. Again, we'll show you a little bit later on how that display looks when it's operating. It's a little bit difficult while I'm holding it in my hands, as I'm sure you can understand. And you'll also see that we've changed to a new design of keypad. So this is a new 8-button keypad. You've got the same 5 buttons on the bottom. And again, I'll just bring this to the close-up camera. So you can see there on the bottom, you've got the same 5-button keypad that we've had previously with the navigate button, the up and down, start and stop. And then we've got 3 new keys across the top here. So the center one of these keys, this is what we call the help key. So you'll notice that there's no help card directly on the front of the drive because all of that functionality is now moved onto this help button in the middle here. Then you've got 2 function keys at the side here. Now on the P2 version of the drive, these 2 keys don't have any dedicated functionality, and they're there so that if you're using the function block programming that's built in on this drive, then you can assign any functions within the function block program that you want to assign to those 2 buttons. So it gives you a lot of flexibility when we're creating special applications for our OEM customers. Now, again, this is available with both switched and non-switched versions, so either with pot, control switch and disconnect, or completely non-switched. 2 frame sizes available now, and that's the frame size 2 up to 4 kilowatt, as we had in the previous generation product. And additionally, you've got a frame size 3 that now on this model range goes up to 11 kilowatt. So in the previous generation product, we had 7.5 kilowatt maximum, 18 amps. We've now got 24 amps, 11 kilowatts available in the frame size 3. So a higher power rating than we had previously. There's one further version of this drive that, again, we didn't bring in directly to show you here, but of course it's the Optidrive Eco variant, which again will share a lot of the characteristics with the P2 drive. So in the Eco version, you've got the same TFT display, you've got the new 8-button keypad. Now, the difference on the Eco drive is these 2 function keys here replace the previous hand auto keys. So your hand auto function is now directly on the screen here, and you can see it on the bottom when we get the display, and we'll show you one with the display set up later on. So you can see that on the screen. And again, those function keys can be accessed through the function block programming. So if you want to assign different functions or use them in a different way, that's also possible in the software. The biggest change for the Eco version specifically on this drive is that we've increased the power ratings within the frame size. So on the previous generation product, you had in a frame size 2, and this unit that I'm holding here is frame size 2. This would have been 4 kilowatts and 9.5 amps maximum. We've now increased that to 5.5 kilowatts, 14 amps available in the frame size 2. So you gain an extra rating in that frame size. In addition, in the frame size 3, which is the next larger size unit than we have showing here, that's now increased from 11 kilowatt up to 15 kilowatt. And that's gone 24 to 30 amps. So you get a higher power into the same frame size that we had previously. So that gives you a significant benefit in terms of a lower cost unit, physically smaller unit for a higher kilowatt rating, higher current rating. Again, as with the E3, parameter set between an IP66 Eco or an IP20 Eco, it's completely identical. Even though the circuit boards inside are different, everything is compatible. You can swap a parameter file from an IP20 into an IP66 or vice versa, and everything is handled automatically. And again, you've got the twin RJ45 sockets under the cover. I didn't actually remove the terminal cover on this one, but you can see inside later on that you've got the 2 RJ45 sockets. So if you're trying to do network communications, or for example, use the OptiFlow function that's inside the software of the drive, that's all built in under here, makes it much simpler for the cabling access. Again, one thing I didn't point out on the housing there, and I'll bring this over to the, so there we are on the close-up camera. You can see that the gland plate now is a cast aluminium gland plate. That's got a ground point connection inside the drive, so that helps with the EMC compliance and shielding of cables. And this gland plate is completely removable. You've just got 4 screws there. It's sealed behind the gland plate and sealed on the screws, so it's fully water and dust tight. So when you're installing the drive, you can simply remove the gland plate, connect the glands and the cables in there, attach the gland plate back on the drive. Again, much simpler for a minute. Okay, so that's the versions of the drive introduced. And we talked a little bit earlier, or I briefly spoke earlier, about the IP66 outdoor. So that's one of the significant changes that we brought in on this drive, is it is suitable for outdoor mounting. Now there's one major sort of proviso, let's say, when we're mounting these units outdoors. As you can see, this is a black plastic housing, and one of the key characteristics of black is it will absorb the sunlight. So it's very important when we mount these drives outdoors. Yes, they're weather protected. Yes, the plastic is UV protected. Yes, it's sealed, but we need to be sure that we don't have the solar heating effect from the sun. So what we've introduced is, if there's a case where this drive has to be mounted directly in the open and there's no alternative method to shield it from the sunlight, we've introduced this weather shield, or sun hat as we affectionately refer to it internally. So the way this works is that basically you will take your drive, mount it on your flat, vertical, flame-resistant surface, as we advise you in the user guide. using the mounting holes in the heatsink. And then this will just attach on the top. So this actually has its own screw holes, so you'll mount to the same vertical surface that you're mounting the drive. It sits directly above the drive. If I just turn this round a little bit, you'll see there you've got vent holes at the side that allow the heat from the drive to escape. And you can probably just about see on there the screw mounting holes. So again, it's very simple to mount that above the drive. With this, there are 3 different sizes. So we've got 4 frame sizes of drive altogether, frame size 1 to 4. There's a dedicated weather shield for size 1, dedicated for size 2, and then a third one that's shared between frame sizes 3 and 4, which we can do because basically the width of the top of this part of the drive between a size 3 and size 4 is identical. So we can use the same weather shield for both devices. And again, those sun hats, weather shields, they're available to order now directly from our customer services.
I found this on the web.
Okay, so just to talk then about some of the other additions that we've done to the product range. This is the IP20 P2 product that we're talking about now. One of the big changes that we've introduced is we've moved to the TFT display as standard. So again, if I just show this up. So in common with the IP66 drives, you've now got the same 8-button keypad. So the familiar 5 buttons on the bottom, and then your 3 new function buttons that are on top there. So we've got the help key in the middle and your 2 function buttons either side. So this is a mono TFT display that's fitted on the drive. It's fixed, not removable. It's built in on the drive as part of it from production. And we've introduced this as standard across all of the IP20 product range. So that's the P2 and Eco drives. So what you've got there is you've got the multi-language TFT display, which is a higher resolution than the previous OLEDs we were using on the IP66 drives in the past. So it's a much clearer text display, more space on the screen to display more information. And we've got all of the key European languages included on there as standard. So that's on both P2 and Eco IP20 frame sizes 2, all the way up to the new frame sizes 6A and 6B. Which brings us on to one of the additional new improvements that we've brought in. For those of you who've seen the frame size 6B, which is our new IP20 frame size, on the P2 version of that, we've increased the power rating. Now, hopefully you can understand why I didn't bring the frame size 6B in here, because it's physically quite large to try and carry on the camera here. That frame size 6B now gives us 110 kilowatts or 202 amp rating in that frame size. So where previously you would have needed to use the frame size 7, which is only available in IP55, we've gained an extra rating there, significantly smaller for when you're mounting it into cabinets. And as with all of the IP20, P2 and Eco model range, it is 50 degrees ambient, full output current rating. So that's quite a significant benefit for you guys who are using the drives in cabinets. So in addition then, as we've introduced the TFT displays as standard on P2 and Eco products and across the board on the IP20 and the IP66, made sense for us also then to update the OptiPad. So again, I'll show this up to the camera, probably. So this is the new version of the OptiPad, the 2nd generation, and this also then shares the TFT display. So when you're using the new P2 with the TFT display or the Eco Drive or the IP66s, it's exactly the same display technology is now being ported over into this new version of the OptiPad. So you've got the same languages supported directly on the keypad here as we had previously on the built-in TFT displays. So again, a nice improvement on the OptiPad product for us. So finally, just to move on to the last product that I want to introduce to you guys today, bring the E3 drive over. For any of you guys who are familiar with our products, you'll know that on the E3, which is our most simple, basic, low-cost product, we've got a single output relay built in on here. And we realize that quite frequently we come across applications where the customer needs two output relays. So for example, one might be used as fault indication, one might be needed for drive run-in indication. So we've updated the second relay output module. So again, because this is a little bit hard to see from distance, I'll just bring it over here. So firstly, just to show you the new module on its own. So what you'll see here is this is physically much smaller than the previous generation product that we had. You've simply got the two pins that go into the terminal strip, and then we've got changeover contacts on the bottom here. So this is rated for 230 volts up to 5 amps, or 30 volts DC. And this just goes directly into the terminals 8 and 9 there on the drive. It's a little bit difficult to see from the side. And then the functionality of that is then determined by the parameter that would normally control the changeover from the IP analog output function. So any function that's selectable on the analog output, we can select there on the relay. So one of the big changes that we've done on this is now this is fully enclosed. You can see on the front and rear, it's completely enclosed within. Very simple, takes up much less space. And of course, it can be fitted inside the terminal chamber on the IP66. Okay, so that's the products that I wanted to introduce to you guys today and to talk about, and just give you an overview. It's been very short and sweet, I hope. But please, is there any questions you guys would like to ask? I'll just try and go through the ones I can see on the screen at the moment. One of the questions we've had, and actually this is something that's come up on the support, is where we've got drives that have got the built-in switches. Is it possible to turn on the switch functions on and off? Because again, if I show you on this E3 drive, and I might just need to hold this up to the camera, for you guys who are familiar with our previous products, on the previous generation switch products, these devices here, so the pot and the switch, were actually wired down through into the terminal strip, and you could actually see the wires in the terminal strip here. And one of the changes that we've made is we've integrated the control pot and switch into the control board, so that you don't need to remove any wires there. And what we've done then is we've added a function in the software. So if you want to enable or disable the functionality of those, you do it via parameters within the drive. So for the control switch here, it is explained in the user guide, but basically you go to parameter 0, there's a key function that you hold, and you'll see a menu appears on the screen to see whether the switch is on or off. And when it's switched on, there are two different modes. So we have what we call the alternate mode, which means digital input 2 is on in one position, digital input 1 is on in the other position, or in the standard mode, you get input 1 in one position, inputs 1 and 2 in the other position. So it is just switched on through the parameters. And for the potentiometer, we've added an additional option in the analog input format source. So instead of where you would normally select, for example, 0 to 10 volt, 4 to 20 milliamp signal, there's an extra option in there that says whether to use the built-in pot. So it's selected through, for example, parameter 233 or 231 on the P2, or through a different parameter on the E3 drive. In terms of the languages that we have on the TFT display, at present we've got the English, German, Spanish, Italian are the languages that are available. We are looking to add additional languages, for example, Dutch, where Jeffrey's done a lot of work on the translation for us. So it's in the pipeline for us to add it. At the moment, we've got some restrictions on the memory size within the drive, so we don't have a specific date of when we can introduce that, but it's something that we'll look at doing and see what we can offer. So I think also for the user guides, yes, Nigel's now, he's listening into this broadcast, so I'm sure he'll get back to you later on about translation for user guides as well. Are there any further questions that you guys would like to ask? Please feel free after the webinar is finished. You can always contact us through the normal means and contact by email or by telephone. So any feedback from you guys is much appreciated. As I said at the beginning, this is our first attempt at doing this kind of live webinar. So we're learning as we go, and we realize there are a few elements that we want to improve on, and I'm sure we'll do that. So great. Thank you very much for joining us, guys.